sometime in 1960, I remember my dad told me that his salary was 100 rupees. So if you notice, every 20 years, 1 zero is getting added to your monthly expenses. By that logic, in 2040, your monthly expenses are going to be 10 lakhs a month. The amount of money which goes into the house and the EMIs, I would rather start an SIP and I would probably make more money. And what will you do with that money? I will buy a house. So if you actually can make between 8 to 10% returns, it's not a bad investment.
I mean, my personal perspective is agar 8-10 ho raha hai, you invest in gold or debt or isn't it like easy piece of money?
It is.
The biggest question that all of us have is, there are I think 2,500 plus mutual fund schemes.
Yeah.
What is your framework to select the right mutual fund, if there is?
I'm sure investor needs more than 4 types of funds. I've got 2 demat accounts in my name. One is the one where when you get that khujli of buying and selling. And there is this other dead demat account where all these shares of these IPOs from the last 30, 40 years are just lying there. Which one of these do you think has made money?
Hi sir, welcome to Power Pioneers. I think this podcast will be full of learnings basis your experience and your client's experience. Let's start with your background, your childhood, where you started and how through your career you built the initial corpus of money.
So I was born in 1966. So I'm running 58 now. My dad was an insurance advisor in those years when I was growing up. The day I became 18, he said, get up, chalo, let's go to LIC's office.
Okay.
Now you start doing what I have been doing for the last so many years. I remember my first salary was 500 rupees. And in the 1960s and 70s, there weren't a lot of investment options. There was either a bank FD or you buy an insurance policy and there was nothing else. I was a science student. I had no idea what stocks are, what dividend is, and why do stocks go up or even why do they go down. India was opening up in the 80s. And in those times, IPOs used to come up and without knowing anything, we used to simply apply for an IPO. HDFC Bank came out with an IPO, ICICI Bank came out with an IPO, a few automobile companies, Hero Honda and all that came out with the IPOs in the late 80s and early 90s. So I remember when HDFC Bank came out with this issue, it was at 10 rupees, at par. Okay, and it got listed at 30. So a friend of mine came and said, 10 has become 30, sell it. So, okay, 1,000 will become 3,000 rupees. What will I buy out of that 3,000 rupees? So let's not do anything. Let it be there and let's see what happens. So we just kept those shares and today also they are still there. And that 1,000 rupees today is approximately 17 lakh rupees.
Wow.
One story is if you are investing money, you do nothing with it. You allow it to grow, you allow it to compound.
Money makes money.
Money makes money and more money makes more money.
Yeah.
That's a little bit about my journey and how we started.
Great.
Yeah.
So for your personal portfolio, how did you sort of define a strategy, how your portfolio should be? And how did it evolve? I'm sure like when you started, it was more, maybe debt first and maybe move towards equity along with time.
It was exactly that way, debt first. Because as I said, we didn't understand how the stock market works. It only came a little later when you deeply studied that, I had invested X amount and it has grown. Why has it grown? So what is happening? When I'm buying an equity share, the outstanding shares of Reliance Industries are 100 and you bought 1 share. You are now 100th owner of Reliance Industries.
Yeah.
And you have Mr. Mukesh Ambani who is actually working to see to it that your equity value grows.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I invest money to be part of a business which is growing and helping me grow? This tube light, took some time to lit up. It started with being in debt. It started having a PPF account. It started buying with an LIC policy. It started with having some money in the post office, monthly income scheme and Kisan Vikas Patra and national savings certificates. And all of us have gone through that.
Yeah.
I still tell people, I remember in 1986, the very first mutual fund in India was launched, 1986.
Okay.
Its name was UTI Master Share.
Okay.
Because it was the first mutual fund scheme to be launched, we sold it.
Okay.
As a distributor. As a distributor, we sold it. But we also bought it for ourselves. Till today, I have an investment which I had done in 1986 in UTI Master Share and I still hold it. And from that day till today, in the last 30 plus years, it has given me a dividend from 12% to 30% every year without fail.
Wow.
Now, when we started doing this and receiving this, why not put some more money in mutual funds? Why not put some more money in stocks? If they are so much better than an alternative investment, which was fixed deposits, let's try this out. And I think I give this example to everyone today. In those days, it used to be shared certificates. Now it is demat accounts. I've got 2 demat accounts in my name.
Okay.
One is the one where when you get that khujli of buying and selling. And there is this other dead demat account where all these shares of these IPOs from the last 30, 40 years are just lying there. Never done any transaction in that demat account. Which one of these do you think has made money?
Of course, the dead one, I guess.
That is my financial freedom demat account.
What's the value of that demat account, if I may ask?
Well, it's sufficient to see to it that I don't need to work.
Okay.
Who will pay my house bill? And 2 years later, 5 years later, when the 1 lakh becomes 10 lakh rupees, I don't need to bother.
Right.
What I'm trying to tell you is, when you make an investment, think long term. And you ask people what is long term nowadays? 6 months. 6 months is not long term. 6 years is not long term. 15, 20 years is long term.
Dead demat account is your financially, the retirement corpus,
Correct,
right?
correct.
So it's entirely in equity, or do you have debt and gold also along
Wonderful
with it?
question again. In that demat account, 80% is equity and 20% is debt.
Okay.
Okay, but that is not my full portfolio because there are PPF accounts also, there are bank fixed deposits also. So at an overall level, the portfolio is approximately 30% real estate,
Okay.
20% bond and debt, and 50% equity.
You spoke about 30% in real estate.
Yes.
So tell us more about that, commercial, residential, because real estate is a very debated topic.
Yes.
And if you go by maths, then you say, okay, equity mein zyada returns milega. But you have seen, I think, the longest section of equity, the ups and downs.
Yeah.
And you're holding real estate. So what's your take on it?
So the most common argument, especially on social media nowadays, especially with youngsters, is buy versus rent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should I rent or should I buy?
Yeah.
A lot of people say the amount of money which goes into the house and the EMIs, I would rather start an SIP and I would probably make more money. And what will you do with that money? I will buy a house. If you're going to buy it 20 years later, why not have your own house now? The comfort of having your own home to live in and probably an office which you can call yours. I think that much real estate needs to be part of your portfolio.
Okay.
Then I again tell everybody that don't take this as your net worth. Because this is not something you are going to sell. Shares, mutual funds, bonds, I can sell at the press of a button.
Correct.
I can't sell my real estate at the press of a button. Try selling a house.
Yeah, it takes months and years.
It takes months and years and you will never get the price you want. I told you 30% of my portfolio is in real estate. That shouldn't actually be used in the calculation because you are using it, you are occupying.
So that's your personal consumption,
Yes,
like
yes.
for your personal consumption, not for investment per se.
Exactly, it's not for investment purposes. There are pockets, especially I hear in Bangalore, especially in commercial real estate, where people tell me that they are making between 8 to 10% returns.
Okay.
So if you actually can make between 8 to 10% returns, it's not a bad investment.
But do you think, my personal perspective is, agar 8-10 ho raha hai, you invest in gold or debt or isn't it like easy peace of mind money?
It is. Again, there is no right or wrong answer, but 5 fingers in one hand, I need to be asset allocated.
Right.
If all your money is in real estate, bad. If all your money is in gold, bad. Asset allocation is the holy grail of investing and portfolio baking.
Got it.
That is most important.
The biggest question that all of us have is, there are, I think, 2,500 plus mutual fund schemes.
Yeah.
What is your framework to select the right mutual fund, if there is?
I'm sure it goes through every person's mind.
Yes.
So over a period of these last 35, 40 years we've been in business, I think if you could distill all that information, what does an investor need? I don't think an investor needs more than 4 types of funds. 4.
Okay. Type as in large cap is one type.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the basic bread and butter fund to experience mutual funds is a short term or an ultra short term debt fund.
Okay.
This is just very, very similar to your bank FD. Your bank FD will give you 7% returns. This will give you close to 7% returns. The advantage is no TDS and you get daily growth. So let's say I put in 10,000 rupees today and I take it out 1 month later. That 10,000 rupees would have grown at the rate of 7% divided by 12. Coming to equity space, one Flexi-Cap fund What is a Flexi-Cap fund? As the name suggests, the fund manager has a flexibility to invest where he or she feels is the right time to invest now. They are allocating your money as they deem fit. For you, you are just thinking, oh, I put in 10,000 rupees and my 10,000 has become 12,000. How it became? No problem, no matter, it's going. Okay. There is something called a multi-cap fund. This helps you be present in all the different parts of the market. So you need to compulsorily have some money in large cap, some money in mid cap, some money in small cap, and that is fixed. So you are never away from small caps or you are never away from mid caps. Everything is there. Then there is a fund category which has become famous in the last 5-10 years, a balanced advantage fund.
Okay.
This is like a fund having a shock absorber. Let's say the market moves up and down like this. This balanced advantage fund moves like this. So it absorbs all the shocks and gives you a return which is almost steady, almost. Not that it will not go up and down, but it's a bread and butter basic entry fund for a first time equity investor.
Okay.
What it does is, in times of wild fluctuations, either side, when the market is too high or too low, it internally reallocates or adjusts depending upon a formula. That formula is decided by the fund house. But these funds have worked phenomenally well without volatility, giving almost steady returns to an investor.
So it's a mix of equity and debt.
It's a mix of equity and debt, and the debt and equity keep on getting reallocated in some funds on a daily basis, in some funds weekly, in some funds monthly. So if you are present in these 4-5 types of fund, no, forget the rest 2,955 funds. But then that brings us to questions that, should I invest in a thematic fund? Should I invest in a technology fund or an energy fund? Or this particular theme is running nowadays, a banking fund?
Right.
No problem. So have a core and a satellite strategy. Have your core 80%. And put this 20% in these thematic or sectoral types of funds just to have that taste. When you are having food, basic dal chawal is good.
Right.
You can always have a little bit of dessert at the end. If you take 80% dessert, that is where the indigestion will start.
Right.
So this is a reasonably good portfolio for somebody who's starting out.
But even, sir, within, say, Flexi-Cap, for example, now there are all fund houses having their own schemes.
Yes.
Then there are multiple metrics associated with each scheme. So are there like 2-3 metrics that, we can, as a passive investor, right? I don't have the time to go through whole detailed fund fact sheets.
I think a good way to compare Flexi-Cap funds, one, they should have seen at least one cycle of stock markets. So if a fund is 7, 9, 10 years old, it has seen market cycles. It has seen ups, it has seen downs. Second, I would like to see that that fund is being managed by the same fund manager over the last 7 or 10 years.
Okay.
In many mutual funds, fund managers keep shifting. Now, when this switch happens, everybody thinks differently. Schemes either underperform or overperform when fund managers move in or out. So if I have a fund which is 7 to 10 years old and it is being managed by the same fund manager over the last 7, 8, 10 years, and if it has consistently beaten its benchmark. So if the benchmark has given 12 and if this fund has given 14, I'm very, very happy with this fund. I'll tell you this, and check this out. All these websites give you star ratings of funds. If a fund is rated 5-star today, it means that that methodology followed by that website says that this fund is one of the top performing funds.
Correct.
Now, go back 3 years and check what was the 5-star performer that year. Chances are, 3 years ago, the fund that was rated 5-star today has become either 2 or 3-star. So all funds, irrespective of the fund manager, irrespective of the AMC, will go through ups and downs. So my suggestion is never invest basis star ratings. Take it as a guideline. A lot of people will log in to their app, fund 1 year return, 72%. Let me invest in this. Let's understand. The average fund return, correspondingly, the stock market is between 13, 14 to 15, 16%.
Yeah.
Average. If you are in a fund which has given 40, 50, 60% return this year, it has given you the return for the next 4 years in 1 year.
sir, you spoke about जैसे आज जो 5 star है, maybe 3 years ago it was not a 5 star, or
Yes.
maybe today if I pick something basis this
Yeah,
methodology and it is not a performer, say it doesn't perform and doesn't beat the index 3 years from now.
Yeah.
That brings me to a very important question which users usually have, that should I exit then? And who best to answer that? You have been
Yeah.
advising that to your clients.
Again, an extremely good question, because up to 2018, this is what a lot of people used to do. If a fund has performed too well, take the money out and shift it to a different fund. In those days, there was no taxation involved. 2018 tak.
Okay.
Okay. Now it doesn't work that way. If you are taking money out, there will either be short-term capital
Yeah.
gains before 1 year or long-term capital gains after 1 year.
Which is increased now.
Which is increased in the recent budget. So in my experience over the last 30, 35, 40 years, again, people who keep on switching funds never really achieve the end objective. Don't do that unless over a period of 2, 3, 4 years, your fund has consecutively underperformed the index, its benchmark. Or in the last 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 fund managers have come and gone. Then it's time to take that decision, even going out probably at a loss and saying, no, these guys probably don't know what they are doing. Let me go out and go somewhere else.
Most of the wealth planning that we talk about is long term, right? Compounding happens in 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
But then life mein to events jaldi hote hain, right?
Yes.
You start earning 5, 10 years, you have wedding, you have kids, etc. So how do you do this goal-based planning?
What is very important is to understand there is something called a bucketing system. Divide your investments into a minimum of 3 buckets. So there is a short-term bucket, there is a medium-term bucket, and there is a long-term bucket. Let's assume I can save 100 rupees a month. Put 10 to 15 in this first bucket. This is the place where you will reach out to take money out if something is needed in the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
Put 25 to 30 rupees in this second bucket. The second bucket is 2 to probably 5 years. And this last bucket is like 7 plus years. So 50, and then allocate the balance 50 over here. If I need money in the immediate future, I will take it out only from this first bucket, whatever it is. I don't want to break compounding from the last bucket, because that money has been planned and done in such a way that I will not withdraw it. If this is over and I can't but not take it out from another bucket, go to that next bucket. Don't touch the last bucket.
Choice of asset class will also be accordingly.
Clearly.
So your short term.
You will never have equity in the first bucket. Never. If you are having equity in the second bucket, it can only be a hybrid or a balanced advantage fund type. And the third bucket will have pure equity. Pure.
Got it. Understood. How do you suggest now to people who are, dual income couples? How do they manage their money, and how have you seen that transforming along the years?
So clearly, we come from a generation where the dad or the husband or probably the brother used to take care of the finances, and mostly the women of the house had no idea of what investments were there or what money was there. And this resulted in a very, very strange and a difficult problem. If the person who was managing everything suddenly died or passed away, they had to run pillar to post just to know kitna paisa tha, how many policies he had, what were his investments. So I encourage all my clients, one, to do investments in dual names. So if you are husband and wife, see to it that both your names are there in the investments. That will solve this one purpose of, God forbid, something happens to one person, automatically you have a list of investments, your name is there. One part is that. Please, if you are a partner, married or not, be involved in your finances. Even if your husband or a male person in your family does take the final decision, know what is going on. And for all your males, listening out there, please, 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 please share everything with your spouse, with your wife, and with your children. But please get involved. It's your money. You should know what is happening with it.
Right. What's the biggest compounding lesson that you have learned? I'm curious.
So let's take example from the personal finance space. And since we are talking a lot about mutual funds, there was this mutual fund scheme which was launched in 1995, October or November, at the NAV of 10 rupees. A few days back, it crossed 4,000.
Oh, wow.
So if you had invested 10 rupees, your 10 rupees has become 4,000. Which means if you had invested a lakh of rupees in that scheme, you're now having 4 crore rupees by doing nothing.
Yeah.
But what's most important is you needed to have 1 lakh rupees in 1995, which was a lot of money.
Yeah. Also the patience for like 30.
And the patience. You know, they also did a survey to find out how many people have actually traveled this journey from 10 to 4,000. They found there are hardly 22, 25 people
Oh.
who started with that 10 NAV and are still holding on to it today. And just to add a little bit of more spice to this, a similar study was done in the US by Fidelity in one of their funds to find out who has held this or any other fund for so long to benefit from the power of compounding. They found again it was in tens of numbers, 20, 30, 50 people. You'll be shocked to know the reason. A few of those people were dead.
Oh.
Which means they didn't even know that they had an investment like that. And the rest had probably changed their address, which means they never got a letter or account statement from the company informing them that your 10 rupees has become 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000. Very few people intentionally held on to it.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that 300 could actually become 500 or 1,000 or even 4,000.
Yeah.
And to confess, I also didn't. I also didn't invest in the scheme because I did not know, which emphasizes the role of luck. Luck plays a big, big part in your investment journey, in your financial freedom journey. I'm not saying it's the only part, but it's a very, very big part.
You know, sometimes when I feel अब अब निकाल लेते हैं पैसे, it's like ठीक है 15 का 14.5 हो जाएगा, like the percentage क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है, but I think in long term फर्क पड़ता है.
बहुत बड़ा फर्क पड़ता है, and let me give you that example. So the BSE Sensex, currently the BSE index is close to 82,000. Okay, the BSE index was established in 1986, but it was rebased to 100 in 1979. So if on 1st April 1979, if you had put in 100 rupees, your 100 has now become 82,000.
Yeah.
That gives you a return of approximately 16%.
Annualized.
So 100 becomes 16% CAGR annualized return. My question to you is, if instead of getting 16% return, if I would have got 15% return, what would the value of 82,000 be? People say maybe 70, 65, 60. It's actually 53,000.
Oh.
Just a 1% return compounded over 45 years makes a big difference. That is why think long term.
So last question, any advice that you would want to give to anyone who is starting out their financial journey?
There is this rule which says that every 20 years, 1 zero gets added to your monthly expenses. And I'll explain this. Sometime in 1960, I remember my dad told me that he had got his first job and his salary was 100 rupees. 20 years later, that is in 1980, the monthly expenses had gone up to 1,000 rupees. In 2000, it became 10,000. And in 2020, the monthly expenses were 1 lakh rupees. So if you notice, every 20 years, 1 zero is getting added to your monthly expenses. By that logic, in 2040, your monthly expenses are going to be 10 lakhs a month.
Yeah.
Are you saving or investing enough to see to it that in 2020, which is just 16 years away, there will be an investment corpus of yours which will give you a passive income of 10 lakhs a month? Think.
Yeah, doing my SIPs right away. So great. This is super helpful. Thank you so much, sir. We had a great time talking. Lots of learning. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
for inviting
us.
me. I really loved being here.